The Israelite army, led by Joab, clashed fiercely with the Ammonites on the battlefield. The sounds of clashing swords and war cries filled the air as both sides fought valiantly for victory. While the army of Israel waged war in Rabbah, their king David remained in Jerusalem. Far from the chaos of the battlefield, King David walked on the rooftop of his palace one calm evening. The city stretched out before him, bathed in the glow of twilight. As he gazed over Jerusalem, his eyes fell upon a woman bathing on the rooftop of her courtyard. She was breathtakingly beautiful, and David's curiosity turned into desire. Calling for a servant, David asked,
"Who is this woman?"
The servant returned shortly and reported, "My king, she is Bathsheba, the wife of Uriah the Hittite, one of your soldiers." Despite learning of her marriage, David sent for Bathsheba to be brought to the palace. She arrived nervously, bowing before the king. David welcomed her warmly, and their meeting that evening would change both their lives forever. Weeks passed, and one day a message reached David from Bathsheba. The words were simple, but carried heavy implications. She was with child. Guilt and panic began to take hold of David as he realized the gravity of the situation. Determined to conceal his actions, he devised a plan. David summoned Uriah, Bathsheba's husband, back from the battlefield. When Uriah arrived, David greeted him with a smile and said,
"You have fought valiantly. Go home and rest. Spend time with your wife."
But Uriah, loyal to his comrades and the Ark of the Covenant, refused. "How can I enjoy comforts at home while the Ark and my fellow soldiers remain on the battlefield?" he said. David's frustration grew as Uriah slept at the palace gates instead of going home. His plan had failed. Now David resolved to take more drastic measures. He sat at his desk and wrote a letter to Joab, the commander of his army. The letter read, "Place Uriah at the front lines, where the fighting is fiercest, then withdraw so he will be struck down." David sealed the letter and handed it to Uriah, unknowingly making him the bearer of his own death sentence. On the battlefield, Joab followed David's instructions. Uriah was placed in the thick of the battle, and when the fighting became most intense, the troops withdrew, leaving Uriah exposed. He fought bravely but fell alongside many others. A messenger brought news of Uriah's death to David. "My lord, the battle was fierce, and Uriah the Hittite has fallen." David feigned sorrow and said,
Do not be discouraged. The sword devours one as well as another.
When Bathsheba heard of her husband's death, she mourned deeply, clutching his war helmet and weeping in her chamber. After her mourning period, David brought her to the palace, making her his wife. However, the thing David had done displeased the Lord. The Lord sent Nathan, the prophet, to confront David. Nathan stood before the king and said,
"There were two men in a city. One was rich, owning many flocks and herds. The other was poor and had only one lamb, which he cherished like a child. One day, a traveler came to the rich man, but instead of taking from his own flock, the rich man took the poor man's lamb to prepare a meal. Tell me, my king, what should happen to such a man?"
David, filled with anger, declared, "That man deserves to die. He must repay fourfold for his cruelty." Nathan's voice turned stern as he said,
"You are that man. You took Uriah's wife and had him killed. Now the sword will never depart from your house because you despised the Lord and committed this evil."
David was stunned. Overwhelmed with guilt, he fell to his knees and whispered, "I have sinned against the Lord." Nathan replied,
"The Lord has taken away your sin, but the child born to you will die."
Nathan departed, and David retreated to his chamber, filled with sorrow. Alone, he poured out his heart to God, writing a psalm. "Have mercy on me, O God, according to your steadfast love. Blot out my transgressions and cleanse me from my sin." From this story, we learn that even those chosen by God are not immune to temptation. David's tale reminds us that while no one is beyond forgiveness, our actions carry lasting consequences. Power must be wielded with humility, and repentance is the path to restoration. Whenever we act, thinking no one sees, we must remember, God sees everything,